You're watching Access Asia with me, Delano D'Souza. Coming up, regional elections underway in Indian-administered Kashmir. The vote is the first in a decade, as well as the first since its autonomy was scrapped. Meryl Streep says what's happening in Afghanistan serves as a cautionary tale where a female cat has more freedoms than a woman. And a historic verdict in Japan, a court ruling an 88-year-old who spent half his life on death row is innocent. But first, the final phase of voting in India's Jammu and Kashmir is due to take place Tuesday, with results due out on the 8th of October. It's the first time since elections are taking place in a decade. The vote is also the first held since Article 370, which gave the region semi-autonomous status, was scrapped. To talk more about the elections and the climate the polls are taking place in, we can bring in Anuradha Bhasin, managing editor of the Kashmir Times. Thank you so much for joining us here on France 24. What has been happening in Kashmir over the past 5 years since Article 370 was scrapped?
We know very little of what has happened in the past 5 years because the media has been completely muzzled. And it is for the media to bring out the voices of the people, whether it is the political voices, the voices of the civil society, or just ordinary voices. But the little that we know, and because the muzzling of the media itself is an indication that there is extreme level of suppression and a systemic way of silencing the voices of Jammu and Kashmir. Other than that, there are disappointments over the changes in the law that have taken away the constitutional guarantees and protections that the people had earlier with respect to jobs, government jobs, and lands. That has gone. The economy is in shambles. Even in the Hindu majority areas of Jammu and Kashmir, which is the BJP stronghold, there is an increasing level of disappointment.
Anuradha, this is the first vote, as I mentioned, to take place in a decade. Now, in the past, separatist elements have called for a boycott of the polls. Not this time. Why is that?
The separatists, most of them are in jails. They have become irrelevant in the present situation. And there are no boycott calls, also because the people of Jammu and Kashmir are navigating the new reality and the changed landscape with more pragmatism. And they feel that it is important for them to use this vote, which is probably the only opportunity that they have to articulate their sentiments.
Now, when Article 370 was scrapped, the argument from New Delhi was to put Kashmir on the same footing as the rest of India. Economic activity in the past was controlled by the assembly. That hasn't been the case over the past 5 years. So what has happened in terms of development, in terms of investment?
Look, when they stripped Jammu and Kashmir of its autonomy, they not only took away the autonomy, which probably the BJP felt was something extra being given to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. It was the first example ever in democratic India to demote a state into union territory, and not just one union territory, truncate it, cleave it, turn it into two union territories, with one with a legislative assembly, which is Jammu and Kashmir, and Ladakh, which will not have a legislative assembly, and where disappointments have at present triggered protests, which are going on right now. As far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, where there is going to be an assembly, it will have limited powers because the union territories do not enjoy the same federal powers as full-fledged states. Over and above this, there was a recent order just ahead of the elections, which gives overarching powers to the lieutenant governor. The New Delhi's appointee who's heading the state is he will have oversight powers over the functioning of the legislative assembly, dealing with whether it's administrative matters, related to prisons, related to security, related to transfers, anything.
After these assembly elections, a lot will still be controlled by New Delhi. So, what is realistically going to change?
That's exactly what the worries are. You see a high level of enthusiasm in the polling booths, people queuing up, despite the sufferings that they have endured in the past. So there is some hope that there would be a little relief. Apart from the anger that people want to give vent to the anger that has been suppressed in the last 5 years. Apart from that, there is a hope that something will change minimally, at least in terms of jobs, because there is a high level of unemployment. Businesses are going down.
Now, authorities in Delhi seem eager to demonstrate how the region has made stride. They, in fact, organized a bus tour, a tour of foreign diplomats to verify how this election process is taking place. What do you think is behind this show and tell from New Delhi?
I for the last 5 years, they haven't allowed diplomats to visit other than these chaperoned visits, which have happened in, even in 2019, they had a couple of them. And I'm not sure how much the diplomats can actually make out without having the freedom to move around freely. At the time that these a tour of diplomats has been organized, foreign media is not allowed to operate in Jammu and Kashmir, right? Local media does not have the same the freedom to write what they should be writing. They have been controlled through a very systemic and suppressive mechanism.
I, in fact, spoke to a journalist based inside Kashmir to try and get them on the show, and they were happy to do an off the record, not on the record. Why do you think that there's this fear to speak?
There is a lot of fear to speak, and if you see, even if very little that is trickling out of Kashmir, there are these whole issues of anonymity. People do not speak to you out of fear, and if they do so on conditions of anonymity, and that for journalists is a troubling situation because. There are issues of how authentic this would sound at the end of the day. We even have had reports which were slightly critical, not even extremely critical, where the reporters' names have not been mentioned. And even newspapers like Guardian have been publishing reports saying that the name of the reporter cannot be disclosed. And that itself is an indication of how frightening the situation is. Journalists are repeatedly summoned and interrogated. And while they're being interrogated, they're not just interrogated for their work and forced to part with their sources. They are asked uncomfortable questions about their personal lives, about their family members. And then this has an extremely chilling effect on the journalists. Their passports have been impounded, some have been put on the no-fly list, and if you have to survive, you have to give in.
You have to give in. We'll see what comes out of this election process. Anuradha, thank you so much for joining us on the program today.
Thank you.
Now, a clip of American actress Meryl Streep describing the fate of Afghan women has gone viral. She was speaking on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York. Streep told the summit women in the country enjoyed more freedoms back in the 1970s, adding what's happening today in Afghanistan serves as a cautionary tale. Take a listen.
Today, in Kabul, a female cat has more freedoms than a woman. A cat may go sit on her front stoop and feel the sun on her face. She may chase a squirrel into the park. A squirrel has more rights than a girl in Afghanistan today because the public parks have been closed to women and girls by the Taliban. A bird may sing in Kabul, but a girl may not, and a woman may not in public. This is extraordinary. This is a suppression of the natural law.
Now, a court in Japan has acquitted an 88-year-old man who was the world's longest-serving death row inmate. Former boxer Iwao Hakamata spent 46 years behind bars after he was convicted for killing his boss, the man's wife, and their 2 children. The court now has ruled the evidence in the case was fabricated. There was a smile on Hideko Hakamata's face as she walked out of a Japanese courtroom. The 91-year-old left beaming after a judge declared her brother, who spent 46 years on death row, was innocent after it found evidence was fabricated.
Everyone, we won the acquittal. It's all thanks to your support. Thank you for such a long time. Everyone, thank you so much.
Iwao Hakamata was unable to attend Thursday's proceedings due to his ailing health. In 1968, he was convicted of robbing and killing a company manager and 3 members of their family. While the former boxer was sentenced to death, he wasn't executed due to lengthy appeals. Capital punishment was upheld in a 1980 ruling, but a turning point in the case came 10 years ago when a retrial was granted and Hakamata was released from prison.
The court clearly said this important evidence had been fabricated, so now prosecutors no longer have any means to prove the conviction. The court also said other submitted evidence is not strong enough to prove Mr. Hakamata was the criminal, so it doesn't hold much meaning.
While Iwao Hakamata initially claimed his innocence, he eventually confessed after what he would later go on to describe was a brutal police interrogation process where he was beaten. The court's decision is likely to renew scrutiny on Japan's criminal justice system, which has a conviction rate of 99%.
There are people who suffer from false accusations as a result of the police hastily trying to reach a conclusion. I feel there are many cases in which we cannot really trust police and feel that they've done a thorough investigation.
Iwao Hakamata's case is among the 5 retrials granted in Japan in its post-war history. While the decision is a victory for the 88-year-old, it's also one for his elder sister who spent half her life fighting for her brother's innocence. That's it for this edition of Access Asia. From all of us on the team, thank you very much for watching.